Hello there. We are underway in celebrating our first year anniversary. And if you don't already know about it, I'm hosting a raffle and giving away more than $2,000 worth in cash and prizes. So if you or a friend have access to an Apple product, you can enter to win. For the complete details, go to sayyesToYourSoulPodcast.com. All right, here we go with another soulful episode. I think you'll find this next episode especially raw and real. And I think it's a great example of a woman not making excuses for herself, but really using her humanity to forward her spiritual growth. And as a result of that growth, she makes a wonderful contribution now to the lives of other women. So I hope you'll come on in and cry and laugh with us. Hi there. My name is Tessa Lynn Alburn. Welcome to Say Yes to Your Soul. This is where we're going to talk about how you can get past your spiritual plateaus, raise your feminine energy, and express your true self with sparkle. Hello there. I'm so glad you're with us for another Say Yes to Your Soul episode. Today, our magical guest is Kristin the Voice Witch. Kristin now works with women to reclaim and empower themselves through their voices with a combination of singing lessons, acting coaching, and life coaching. Kristin also facilitates monthly ecstatic singing circles. Sounds like a lot of fun. Poetry readings, workshops, and retreats within the Dragon Rose Temple of Ecstatic Vocal Arts. Kristin is a professional classical singer with a gorgeous voice and a singing coach of more than 20 years. She's supported dozens of people in developing their singing voices and expanding their capacity for self-expression. She's also a mother and a passionate flower gardener. That's very specific, right? She doesn't just garden any old thing. She's really into flowers because her values for beauty and nature, are so strong. And she's actually tells me she's obsessed with beauty, which I happen to be as well. So I love that, the fact that we have that and we share that. She also loves to travel. I want to welcome you here, Kristin, to Say Yes to Your Soul.
Thank you, Tessa. It's such an honor to be here.
Yay.
And so fun.
Yes, very fun. So I've been getting to know you over the last few months, more and more. I think we met maybe a year ago. And I just love getting to know you. And you've got such a big, juicy story. And some of it's like really tender and poignant and difficult and all of that stuff. And we're going to just bring it to people in a way that they can understand like the potency of it, right? And without having to feel bad for you or go down that or like activate something in them that doesn't feel great. And I think we're just going to go ahead and kick it off. You grew up as a good little Mormon girl, Kristin. And then that all changed. So take us on that journey, please.
Okay. Yes. So I was an active believing Mormon or Latter-day Saint until I was about 40 years old. I did all the things. I was very deeply committed and devoted to my faith and devoted to the divine beings that I believed at the time were, God. And looking back now, I can see the tendrils of unraveling of my connection with the faith as early as my later 20s. But as I got into my 30s and I lived in New York City, I would say that like my worldview and my life expanded so much. And I was still holding my faith very important to me. But I was also exposed to, like I went to acting school and was exposed to very high level energetic practices at some point. And
can you explain a little bit about that so everybody who's listening knows what you mean?
Yeah, I will do my best. So I jumped ahead a little bit. I have ADHD and I don't really think very linearly.
Well, there's no need to apologize for that here.
So I was jumping ahead to the time when I was 39. I'd moved to Utah after 5 years in New York City and busking my way through Europe for a couple of months. That was a fun, really fun adventure. I landed in Utah. I was very unhappy with the singles scene because I was single at the time, the single Mormon scene of mid singles in our 30s and 40s. It was really rather awful. And
I'm really sorry. Sorry, I'm laughing. But yeah, no, that's no good.
Thank you.
No bueno.
Was not super fun. Yeah, I was just finding myself feeling very unfed spiritually in my religious practice and going to church regularly. It just felt very, very stifling to my spirit to be here in Utah and in this culture and worshiping in that way. And I was invited to attend some classes on ascension. And I went to these classes and I learned about opening up the Merkaba, which is the light body. I learned about doing the small cycle of heaven meditation, which is working energies up through your spine and down through your body. And I was introduced to some sacred sexual practices of onking and things of that sort in this series of classes, which were proposed to be like an academic version of a mystery school, as it were. And I started journeying in spirit a little bit, and I started doing some very woo things. And I was finding that that was really filling me up. And I was just absorbing this as if it were light, and I was just absorbing all of this light and all of this really rich instruction and these really rich concepts. Like I learned about the flower of life and sacred geometry and all of these things. And I was just soaking it up. It felt very familiar to me. And now I realize that like I had been in very deep initiations in mystery schools in prior lifetimes. So that's why it all made a lot of sense.
So a lot of things are like pieces were sort of falling together and you're like, oh yeah, now this is making sense. And kind of,
yeah,
we're feeling it too.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. So there you were, and you were getting all this high level stuff.
Yeah.
And then what happened? What were the conflicts for you?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, that came when my guides told me that it was time to call in my partner. I opened up my heart, I put on the manifesting music, and I broadcast the message that I'm here, I'm ready. And then the man who showed up shocked me because he wasn't in a situation to be available.
Is it what?
He was not available.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was messy.
Yeah.
And I fell for him and we got together. And the conflict came because I took on a role of villain that I was unexpectedly taking on and I was completely unprepared for, or at least I thought I was unprepared for. But this was the journey my soul was taking me into, was this journey of going into the underworld, taking on the villain, breaking up important relationships in my life that honestly were a bit toxic, that there needed to be adjustments in these relationships.
Well, why are you saying you were the villain?
Oh, because I was the other woman. And this is definitely a villain role. Mm-hmm.
Right. So you were, because of that role, that led to the breaking up of other important relationships and things. That's what you're saying.
Yes. Including a faith crisis and transition out of Mormonism.
Ah, yeah. So that must have been like terrible to the Mormons. They were like, no, big scarlet letter sort of thing, or worse.
Yeah, I didn't broadcast it super widely, but it's my story. It's what happened.
Yeah. So how did it connect to a crisis in faith for you?
Oh, yes. Okay. So I had been called in by my bishop, who is the clergy member that oversees a congregation, and basically told that somebody had dropped my name in regards to an infidelity accusation, and they were calling me in for accountability, and he wanted to have a discussion with me. I felt very threatened. I decided not to re-engage with him after that point. I was terrified that I have to face a disciplinary council, which I don't think that I would have actually had to have faced, but I was really terrified of that.
Well, that was part of the problem, right? Like there was that insinuation.
Yes, there was a
Yeah.
threat.
Yeah.
And it felt very, very, very dangerous and scary. And I believe that part of why is because in the early days of the Mormon church, the people who came to Utah could not safely leave. There was a threat of death over them to leave. That's why when an army came and when the soldiers left, over 100 women left with them because they could be in safety.
Oh my goodness.
That's how threatened these people felt.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
and how unsafe they felt. They couldn't leave.
I didn't realize like it's been that threatening since the get-go.
Yeah. So it was deep in my bones that if I left the faith, I would die.
Sure.
And there's also a social death associated with leaving the faith. You die to the people that are within the faith because because the way that they have been taught about people who leave the faith, there is no room for somebody to leave the faith with their honor intact. It's always a story that there is some kind of unfaithfulness or some kind of apostasy. There's always some sort of very negative reason why somebody leaves. There's never room for somebody to leave because it was the right thing for them, and that's okay.
And it sounds like there was no forgiveness or mercy.
Only if I would have gone through a very humiliating repentance process that would have put me
mercy. Yeah.
It's not merciful. And in fact, what really turned the tide for me was as I was terrified of what repercussions would be after talking with my bishop, I went to the internet and I looked up the unpublished but leaked version at the time of the disciplinary procedures and the leadership handbook, which was not published then. And I read through all of the disciplinary procedures, and that's when my shelf broke. And that's when I realized this was an abusive institution. They were creating physical and spiritual and psychic abuse on people through this repentance process. It was absolutely just creating tourniquets of shame and guilt to control behavior. And there was nothing in there that felt in alignment with what I understood Jesus and his energy and his intentions to be. At that point, I had had a very mystical, deep experience with him, with Yeshua. I call him Yeshua now. And I knew in my bones that there was nothing but love and complete understanding and compassion and empathy on his end. Nothing but that.
That's all that Jesus has been about, all his true teachings. And I'm so glad that you got to experience that for yourself, because this would have been a huge crack. You called it your shelf breaking, I think you said. Yeah. And so I now know what that is, but I'd love for you to go ahead and explain that to the listeners here.
So the idea is that you go through your life within a faith, especially a high demand faith like Mormonism is, and there are things within the faith and your life experience that do not add up. And so because you can't reconcile the two, there's cognitive dissonance there, you put it on the shelf to be reconciled later.
Like, it's just a thing. Oh, that doesn't make sense. I'll just put that on the shelf.
At another time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea is you wait until like the next life when you've passed on and you're seeing God and you can ask him all the questions.
Yeah. Shelf of denial. Don't look at this now, or the ostrich shelf, or, you could call it a million things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The shelf of cognitive dissonance mostly, and of misalignment with soul.
And yours broke.
And mine broke.
And what did that mean for you internally?
It meant that I completely lost trust with the leadership of that institution. It meant that I realized that institution was deeply corrupt, that they were taking the name of Jesus in vain. That's what I realized for myself. And then
I think we need a deep breath there. Yeah, I do. That's big stuff.
mhm,
An institution taking the name of Jesus in vain. I think whatever one's beliefs are, whether it's Jesus, Yeshua, Sananda, he was a great teacher of love and spiritual ways of being. And to take something like that, so pure and so beautiful, and use it to control masses of people
yes.
is corruption. Absolutely.
To control, to shame, to humiliate if they step out of line, and especially around anything sexual. There is so much control and shame around that. And to the point where there's a complete lack of confidentiality. Like there's no honor, there's no respect towards a human for being human.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, they want people to procreate, so they know they're going to be having sex. The men get to call all the shots. They have multiple, it's very polygamist.
They used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's still side shoots that are not affiliated with the main faith. But yes, that is the foundation of this church.
So they know everybody's having sex. So it's a great weapon, a great thing that they can weaponize and use against people, especially the women that had no power. They had nobody standing up for them in that system, and they still don't.
Nope. No, women do not have a voice within the power structures of this church. They're auxiliaries.
I'm so glad you got out of there.
Me too. It was so confining.
You stepped away, you dealt with all that and a lot of terrible stuff as a result of your leaving. And even people around you, close friends, some family, just really, really challenging. Yeah.
There was a lot of freaking out. Yeah. A lot of anxiety, a lot of people projecting onto me, and a lot of condemnation, honestly.
Oh, yeah. It's easy to point the finger, right?
Yeah. That was super fun. Yeah. And as somebody who's neurodivergent with rejection sensitivity, that was really hard.
So what would happen for you when you're feeling it as a neurodivergent person?
Oh, I felt it deep in my bones. Like I was being deeply rejected, and I was terrified that they might have been right, that I was cutting myself off from the divine, and that I wasn't worthy of receiving divine love and guidance. That was a huge amount of the programming. There were all kinds of fear bombs that were going off inside of me as I was making my way out of this relationship with this religion.
So how did you do it? How did you get out of it?
Gradually. I attended less. I attended in other places that was not my congregation. After I married, I attended a handful of times, and then we moved to a home and attended a few times, and then I just stopped going. I removed the garment, which is essentially like a cloak of underwear that represents the covenants that you make with God, but actually the covenants are made with the institution, not with God, not with the divine. And I left as quietly as I could. And it was years before I shared anything about that journey publicly.
Well, yes. I mean, it's a very scary thing to leave. And it probably took you a long time before you really felt safe again.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It took me a long time. And it took really working through a lot of carrying what other people thought of me and what their judgments would be. I was very, very, very sensitive to that for a very long time. I still kind of am in some ways. I don't know if that ever really leaves, but it gets better.
Yes, and a little bit less maybe. So what were some of the ways that you knew what to do next? Like how did you proceed? You had to be connecting in some way to some guidance.
I was, yes. And about a year, when I was 39, I went on this busking trip to Europe where I was singing as a street performer on the streets in a number of places. It was really great. It was hard and really fun, an amazing journey. And I was guided by my intuition. I had a year before I had gone through a breakup and I received a blessing where a man lays the hands upon your head and pronounces basically some intuitive channeling advice for you. And I was told that God wanted me to start developing my intuition. So I spent a year doing that. Then I got this intuitive hit to go busking through Europe. And it was on that journey that I really realized what it was to live and go within the flow of my path and to trust the path and to trust the guidance. And it didn't unveil itself all at once. Like I landed in London and I had 5 days planned out of my trip. I got there and I planned out the next 2 weeks. Then I moved forward and then I planned out another couple of weeks. And I just put out the call for people to stay with, and things just unfolded and gradually wove together. And it was a magical, beautiful journey of really following my soul and following this path that I was on. And it was like the guidance and inspiration started to bubble up from within me. And I learned that I could trust this inner wellspring of divinity and connection. And that's what developed. And so that was intact when I went through my faith crisis and transition. And so I leaned deeply and heavily into that because I went through some mystical trauma, not being able to trust the male aspect of God, including Jesus, in the fallout of my faith transition. And so and also including like external angels and guides, I had to learn to lean into the deepest parts of me for guidance.
That is amazing that you were able to do that. So you developed the skills over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important for the listeners here, because I know there's so many women wanting to suddenly just unlock their intuition. There it is, and it's all working, it's all great, but it doesn't really work like that. And you had kind of extreme situation and circumstances that you were dealing with. So it was of the utmost importance for you to listen and find ways to hear your intuition and know the difference. What were some of the beginning tools, if you recall any of those, that where you knew, oh yeah, this is in the zone?
Yeah. I think maybe I've always been rather intuitive, but I didn't trust it, because I was taught to trust the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost as an external source of confirmation that I was on my divine path. I remember, though, after receiving that instruction from the divine, that I felt this like bubbling up within me of like, I've got to fix things with this particular guy that I'd had a relationship and a friendship with over 20 years. I'm like, I've got it. Like something was poking at me, or it was itching.
Itching.
It was kind of like this itch that I needed to scratch. Yeah, I really felt it like in my body. I'm like, oh, I've got to resolve things with this man to move forward. That I knew that was the next step. After that, I knew that like I needed to work on my connections with my parents because they were not healthy in a lot of ways. And so I spent a month like processing through stuff with my mother. I spent another while processing through things with my father. I just dove into whatever was bubbling up within me that felt unresolved and that needed attention.
Beautiful. So you kept applying it to immediate things. You weren't like just ignoring your relationships or the situations that were uncomfortable with your relationships and just like, I'm just going to study spirituality. You were actually using it in your real life with real issues. And that gave it, I mean, my sense of it is that it really gave you a strong grounding in a way that now you can apply that to anything, really. And so you learned to trust it because you were taking these steps and you would follow through and things would happen and then lead to something else that was positively affirmed for you. Did you ever think you'd think you'd had heard your intuition, but it wasn't your intuition? Was there ever a time like that you remember?
Only if it was confused with a lot of fear.
If it was what?
If it was mixed in with a lot of fear.
And so, like thoughts of fear or feelings of fear or both?
Yeah. Thoughts and feelings of fear and terror. And I mean, I've been through some trauma. So fear comes up when you've been through some trauma. And anxiety is a comorbidity with ADHD. So,
Yes.
I deal with that a lot.
So how do you work through that? So when the fear comes up and you want to access your intuition, what is it that you do, Kristin? Can you describe that?
Yeah, I take a breath, I breathe as deeply as I can. It really helps to move my body to get into my body vessel rather than being in my head, because I find that my brain is the part of me that likes to project and like have the anxieties. It's just always
Yes.
kind of running. So when I get into my body, move my body, breathe my body, anoint my body with oils, which is something I've been doing a lot more lately, or I go into meditation doesn't always work for me because of my brain. It doesn't really shut off.
Yeah, all your
But
other
like,
spidey senses are still going. And like,
yeah,
what do I do with all of those?
but like
Yeah.
even just going to the bathroom, being in a bath, taking a shower, being in nature, moving my body, dancing, doing like light stretches or yoga, that always really something that gets me real reconnected to my body. Is very, very helpful. And I've learned some breathing practices too that help me to calm my nervous system. And anything I can do to regulate is very supportive. And then I can get more deeply into my intuition. And more recently, I've also begun using psychedelics as a way to access more of my own inner wisdom and awareness. I go in usually with a lot of intention and prayer and set up the setting and have the right music that I know will be supportive to me. So yes, I do use that as a tool now.
Well, it seems like to use that as a tool well and get something from it and not be destabilized by it in any way, or just have it as sort of a peak experience one time and not much else after that, that you really would need to be able to trust yourself,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
I'm curious right now, you said you use a lot of breathing exercises, and I think if you could share one of your breathing exercises here today with our
sure.
audience, I think they'd really love that.
Okay. So this one I've learned is it's kind of a connecting ground. It's also I think it's like central core breathing or central channel breathing. That's what it is.
Okay.
So you just get settled and you open up your root chakra and the chakras in the soles of your feet. And you breathe and you send your energetic cords down into the earth. And then you breathe in, pulling up the earth energy. And I personally like to do this cycle of releasing into the earth and pulling up the earth energy a few times first at the beginning of it. And then after I've breathed in the earth energy a few times, then I like to send it up through my crown chakra and I like to think of sending it to the origin of my soul.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay. So you're connecting the earth energy going up through you, connecting you and going up to your soul.
Yeah. And then you breathe out towards the origin of your soul. Then you breathe in the cosmic energies and light. And then you breathe that down through the earth. And then you breathe back up the earth energies. And this all goes through your spine. Like it's really helpful to think of it going through the spine. And then out through the crown. And then in through the crown. And down through the root. And just continue to cycle that. I will do this and it helps me to regulate in the most difficult of situations.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. That was lovely.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, is there anything you'd like to share with the listeners before we start wrapping things up here today? from the tremendous amount of wisdom that you've gained in learning to listen to yourself and implement that. What is it you'd like them to know?
I would like to share that it's a slow process, especially if you've had a history of trusting external authority over your own authority, and to be very full of grace towards yourself and just continue to try and trust and build trust slowly with yourself over time, and realize that, like, we're human, we're going to make mistakes, we're going to falter and biff it up. And that's part of the learning process. It is supposed to be like that. And it's beautiful. There is no perfection. There is only growth and expansion and experience. And the more experience you have with trusting yourself, the more deep that trust becomes, until it becomes this beautiful wellspring of life and support within you.
Well put. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You made me think of this belief that I have. If we knew how to do all that and just be perfect, why would we be here getting all these lessons, right? That's the point. Like, the point is to learn to be with the messy, the imperfect.
Yeah.
Right. And love it.
Yes. This is the teaching in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, that the anthropos is fully human and fully divine. And I think we sometimes forget that the fully human part is messy, and it's supposed to be, and the love, just embracing and loving the mess is weaving divinity within our form and within the human experience.
Ooh, I just got this beautiful image of the light weaving.
The light, the energy coming in through all the human bodies, and the weaving of beautiful energy around the earth. And thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Kristin, how can people connect with you? Please tell them.
Yeah, they can find me on my website, KristinTheVoiceWitch.com. It's Kristin, Kristin.
So 2 I's and starts with a K.
2 I's and starts with a K. It's simple and beautiful and very aesthetically pleasing to me.
There you go.
I know, right? So they can find me on that. I also have an Instagram handle, Kristin the Voice Witch. Although I haven't been posting a whole lot on that. I'm going through major life transitions right now, and I've needed my energy inwards.
Yes.
But you'll be back.
I will be back.
You have been going through major life transitions, and it's amazing that you're here and you're glowing. You're absolutely glowing. So I know that this transition is a big time of celebration for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that everybody knows about a retreat that you have coming up.
Yes.
Because you still have like a couple of spots is all.
I do.
Yeah, please.
Yes. Okay. So I am leading the Ecstatic Wild Woman Retreat on the Oregon coast over the summer solstice weekend. So that's June 20th through June 23rd. We're meeting in Waldport, Oregon, which is somewhere between Cannon Beach and Yachats.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. So we've got a cottage right on the beach. We're going to be spending quite a bit of time in nature. We're going to be doing some ecstatic practices, like ecstatic eating and dancing and singing. We're going to have fires around the beach. We're going to be doing a medicine journey. We'll be doing a breathwork exercise. And I'm bringing in a facilitator to do those pieces because that's not my expertise. But the idea is that my intentions with this retreat is that for those of us who have felt disconnected to our bodies, who have judged our bodies, who have really struggled to embrace our physical forms as they are, that we really surrender into the safety where we can experience deep pleasure in our physical forms, and the divinity that is with the pleasure and the connection with our bodies, because we are nature and we are meant to be ecstatic and to feel all the things.
Oh, yes.
I know.
All the things. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh my gosh, I'm like back on the food. I'm like ecstatic eating.
I know.
How could it be more ecstatic than it is? I'm like, all right, that sounds amazing. No, sorry. Is there anything else you want them to know?
Yes, I've got 3 spots open right now. All the spots within the rental are full, so this would be people coming who would take care of their own lodgings. So yeah, we've got that open, and registration is open, I believe, through mid-May.
Okay, fantastic. So it's coming up. You've got to get your registration in, and you're offering a special too to
Yeah,
anyone listening to this who hears it here on Say Yes to Your Soul podcast. You just tell Kristin that. And are you giving the early bird pricing or something else?
yes. I will be extending the early bird pricing for this community. Yes, I'm happy to do that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right. I just want to keep going.
I know, this is fun.
I know I'll see you in life and we'll, here and there and all that stuff, but it is fun. And I love that you are just there's so much confidence. And also, it's not just confidence, it's power. You've been cultivating power. And if you are watching this video, I want you to take a really good look because that's what it looks like. Kristin has it. Okay. I have it too, but you can only see part of me today because my microphone's in my face. All right. There's something I think that we're also transmitting here, which is it's safe to be a powerful woman in this world where it used to not be safe, but now it's safe and we can make it safer. The more of us that become powerful and use our power in good ways and collaborate and honor other women, then we can create that world a much better place.
Yes. And it takes enough of us doing it to get past the tipping point, and then things change.
That's right. We're moving that dial today. I know it now. Okay, Kristin, I'm just so grateful that you could be here and share your wisdom and your story and some laughter and just, your presence. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tessa. This has been such a delight. Thank you.
Oh, you're super welcome. All right. That's it for today's show. I wish you an ecstatic, well, maybe if you can't get there, at least like tingly day. So get to some version of chills or tingles or excitement or bring it in, find it, get some ecstasy happening in your life. And if you want to reach out and have support with that, you've got Kristin for that specific journey. All right. Lots of light, lots of love, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now. All right. Thank you for joining us for this week's delicious episode. Before you jump off, I wanted to remind you to get entered in the raffle this month because I'm giving away more than $2,000 worth of prizes in both private sessions and actual cash. What are those prizes, you ask? Well, one of them is a private 75-minute soul light healing session with me. And that can be healing on various levels. It might be releasing trauma or tuning up your body or your emotions or clearing things like past lives and karma that's been, energetic debris holding you back. This session can be very helpful and sometimes have dramatic results in relationships, money, and in your health. And we're going to do that together on Zoom, so it doesn't matter where you live. The second prize is a 60-minute coaching session with me, and that's also going to be on Zoom. So if you want support or clarity for your goals, like help with getting started with a project or just creating an action plan, that is going to be an amazing session. You'll be surprised at how much you come away with. The third prize is a personalized meditation that I will design especially for you. And of course, it's going to be yours to keep. So it's going to be fully personalized in terms of the content, and I will be speaking just to you so that you will be able to resonate with it and receive the maximum benefits that you want to create. Okay, now for the fun stuff, the cash. I have several cash prizes in various amounts. I've got several $50 prizes, $75 prizes, and $100 prizes. So you can see there are many opportunities to win here, and I just want to encourage you to be sure to play because you do need to play to win. All monetary prizes will be delivered through PayPal or Wise, and if you have a different currency, it'll be automatically converted for you. So as long as you have access to an Apple device, you can play. And all the instructions are available on our website at sayyes2yoursoulpodcast.com. That's sayyes2yoursoulpodcast.com. And if you need any support in completing your raffle entry, my team is ready to help you with that. You'll find their email on our webpage as well. So that's it. All the best to you, and may you say yes to your soul.